Well, good evening once again. It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock, and it's time for the Monday Review Show. This is where we discuss all things referees and refereeing, decisions, penalties, red cards, whatever, once it concerns referees. Now, if you'd like to take part in the show, you can do so by leaving a comment or asking a question down in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. There's a little area there, and you can send in your comments, and so long as they are within reason, I will certainly read them out. We have had in the past some that have not been so complimentary to referees and refereeing, and language hasn't been what one would expect to be for this show, and I certainly would never, ever print anything like that. I'm delighted to be joined once again, by former Premier League referee, former FIFA referee, former head of the PGMOL. For those of you who don't know what the PGMOL stands for, it's the Professional Games Match Officials Limited, and the former suffering from a very bad head cold tonight, Keith. Yeah. So I'm really appreciative that you've made yourself available. Keith Hackett, you're very welcome, Keith. Thank you for joining me.
Delighted to be on the show.
Now, I just want to make a little comment about the reception. It seems to be cutting in and out when I was doing the pre-live broadcast checks and so on. It just seems to be cutting out. So apologies for that if it does happen to cut in or out while we're on air. And we will be on air for the next 30 minutes or so. Refereeing, Keith, we touched on it last week. Been suspended, but current Premier League referee David Coote. It's been all over the media. It's been all over social media that the comments that he made about Jurgen Klopp of Liverpool, and so used some choice language, which we're certainly not going to repeat. And we're not going to discuss the case too much either, because subsequent to that, now there's been another video of a white substance being involved. So again, we have to make clear that David Coote is a human being. He's entitled to his presumption of innocence because he hasn't been charged as yet. He's been suspended by the FA, by Howard Webb, who's now the head of the PGMOL. He's been suspended from all games and remains suspended until an investigation is carried out. So again, conscious of that, going to be very careful that he has a presumption of innocence and he's entitled to his good name. But Keith, you have a little bit of extra light on that subject, do you not?
Well, I think what we have to understand is that he is an employee of the PGMOL. And the PGMOL are an organisation funded by the Premier League, the Football League and the FA, and it has a board of directors. Now, they, as a business, have a duty of care towards David Coote. So when that decision was made by or communicated through Howard Webb, it would have been the board that would have been involved in that particular process. Now, I've been in that situation, having suspended 2 referees when I was boss of the PGMOL. And what I can tell you is it's a very thorough and very professional organisation. What the PGMOL will do is use a small panel, and they will perhaps involve an investigator. They will certainly involve a barrister, and they will take guidance from an employment lawyer. Now, the PGMOL referees were encouraged when I was the boss to become members of the Unite Union. Now, if David Coote, along with others, is a member of the Unite Union, he will get a substantial backing of that organisation to support him and probably defend him in terms of this coming to an effective tribunal. So I think everybody can be confident this is not a fix. This is going to be a due process, taken very carefully to make certain that employment law is adhered to. Now, when we look at what has happened, I think, in fairness, credit to Howard Webb and the PGMOL, they took immediate action and suspended him. One of my concerns was that, there's talk about this being a video that's 4 years old. One has to say, why didn't it come out then at that particular point? So clearly there's some sort of situation that's arisen that's brought this to the forefront of the attention of the world. If he's found guilty, I am personally quite clear, and this is a personal view, that there is no route back for him.
To any level of football league.
Look, at the end of the day, this guy has been unprofessional, if proven. The action is unprofessional. You wouldn't expect it from a referee. A professional approach is to referee a football match, and once you've done your job, that's the end of the matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you've been blasted by a manager on the touchline, or a red card or a yellow card is disputed. You did the job on the day, and that's the important bit. And I worry about, and I want to make quite clear, and I'll repeat it, the PGMOL is an employer of the referee, Coote, the employee. Therefore, they have a duty of care to make certain that this matter is dealt with very professionally. Now, some background here. When I took over the PGMOL, I witnessed or I'd seen that a German referee, Heuser, had been placed in jail for acts of corruption. I came back to the PGMOL board with two sort of requests or recommendations. The first one was that we would issue an instruction, a formal instruction to the referees that they could not gamble on football worldwide. The second one was to, having seen football clubs, having witnessed the FA procedure of drug testing through the use of WADA, the body that does it, I thought, well, if we are professional referees and we're professional athletes and sportsmen in a fast multi-million-pound business, I had no suspicion that anything was untoward. I wanted mandatory drug testing in the same way as a football player is tested to come into operation. And surprisingly, at that particular time, the argument for not going ahead with that from a board point of view was that they might get some really bad publicity on a subject that, has not involved referees. As an outcome, of this whole situation, I have no doubts in my mind that I would, if I was the boss, if I was Howard Webb, I would be returning to the board, making a recommendation and seeking approval of that bringing in of drug testing. And my immediate reaction would be to bring all the referees into their meeting area at St. George's and have them tested. I would then, knowing that I'm sure all of them would be clear, I'm pretty confident, I would then go out to the media very clearly and say, okay, we've had one situation, the rest are not tarnished by these actions of the one individual. And I think that's where it sits at the moment. We have
and that's, Keith, where the suspicion might arise and questions might arise that if, and we have to say if, it is, as it is alleged, that there was a white substance involved with the same referee, could there be others who are also at it, doing it.
Well,
And I can see your point and your reasoning for wanting everybody tested. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I if you like, the whole aspect of testing is to make certain that the integrity of referees is held at a very high level and a high standard. And that's what I inherited. I inherited a group of referees that did have high standards. But I nonetheless put those systems in place. I think some people were shocked by the very nature that I also, and there was no point of suspicion here. This was me being the boss, protecting my employees. Yeah. So I provided every referee in the PGMOL, in the professional level, with laptops. I also provided them with mobile phones. So if at any stage, and it did happen, that someone was accused of gambling, right, we could interrogate very quickly that individual, which we did. And it was proven that he did not. He was nowhere near, but a national newspaper was going to make headlines on one of those referees. And we were able to not suppress that, but actually provide clear evidence that this referee had not gambled on football at all. So I think that putting in systems and doing things are part of what you would do in everyday life. I'm informed. I've been long retired now, but I am informed that there are businesses in this country that do have random drug testing. The one thing I will tell you is that the FA and WADA are excellent in terms of their approach. I don't know if people are aware, but football players during the week have to advise WADA through the club where they're at. So, for example, if you come in for training and it's thick with snow and you have to move the venue and you're training down the road, you have to advise WADA because their drug testing is very clear. It's mandatory, and if you have two misses, you're done. You're effectively found guilty. Now, after UEFA games in Europe, it's an automatic procedure. The match delegate and/or the drug testing officer will come in. They'll have a draw, and those players will come into a special room that's specially prepared and be tested. So I think it upholds the integrity of the competition, and it upholds the integrity of the individuals.
And does that happen with the referees as well? Do you know?
No,
not just the players.
But one further point: the alleged taking of the white powder there is an indication that it was done during a tournament managed by UEFA. So it's not just the PGMOL that's suspended David Coote. The UEFA have suspended him also pending investigations.
And just for clarification for people who don't know, WADA stands for World Anti-Doping Association.
Yeah.
I know certainly from an alcohol point of view here, there's a bus company, major bus company here in Ireland who operate, do tours, and they also do a daily service. And they have a thing in their coaches similar to telephone, and the driver has to blow into that in the morning. And if he's anyway over the limit, and the limits here are very, very, very strict, if he's anyway over the limit, the bus won't start.
I saw that, Errol, on a program this morning. That very thing. And
let me give them a plug. It's Matthews Buses, their major company from Dundalk, which is about 20 miles or so from where I am here. and they run an excellent coach service between Dundalk through local town here, Drogheda, and then on to Dublin. And they also do a run to the universities in Dublin. So they're a major bus company. Yeah. And they have that system in their buses that the driver has to blow into it. He can turn the key all he wants, but it won't start until he blows into this thing. And if he's over the limit, then, you know, and it's fantastic. And congratulations to them.
Absolutely. And I think what I proposed many years ago was, in a way, a prevention of someone walking onto a football field, drugged. There was no evidence that was taking place. I made that particular point. I just felt it was a mechanism of good management to put that in place.
Problem is with the Sunday morning games, the guys have been boozing Saturday night, then they come out and then maybe they're still under the influence, as it were, let me put it mildly. And then they come out and they start abusing referees about decisions because they're still, you know, they need to go to the pub and get a cure. Okay, we'll leave that where it is, Keith. Keith, on the Ireland-England game the other night, I got several phone calls and messages and texts and goodness, emails. The one incident they were all talking about, and it was still 0-0 at this time, first half, when Evan Ferguson, who actually doesn't live far from here, had his shirt being pulled, clear shirt pulling, and everybody's amazed. My screen lit up. Penalty. I said, yeah, I agree. Why didn't he give it? And I don't know if it was automatically referred to VAR. Could you just explain the process of the VAR? Because we don't have it in this country. Do VAR say, have a look at this, referee, it could be a penalty, or do they say it's no penalty, play on? Just what is the story on that?
Well, they will look at they're continually looking at the film. They have screens in front of them with various angles. And the criteria is, if they believe that a penalty kick, an offside decision, wrongful dismissal, a wrong goal, there's 4 sets of criteria, and the criteria has to be a clear and obvious error. Now, one can only assume that the VAR has seen the referee in close proximity to play with a good view of the incident, and he's made his call. And there is in Europe almost, you see the difference, whereas in England is this, I want to get involved, I want to come in, and often they come in too much. In Europe it's the other way. So for me, I think because the referee said it's not a penalty kick and he's in, the VAR, wrongly in my opinion, has not intervened. Because I think, had he done so, I mean, to be honest with you, on first view, this is a penalty.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You don't need VAR. There's a very clear shirt holding, impactful.
Really pulled it off his back.
You know, we're not playing rugby here. We're playing soccer, football. So for me, I thought they were hard done by. I've got to also say that on the second yellow card issued to that player.
Oh, and the penalty was given. Yeah, and it was a penalty. There's no question.
Yeah, there was a penalty kick, but not every penalty kick demands a yellow card. There was no indication of denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. For me, it didn't fulfill unsporting behaviour. The challenge wasn't reckless, but it's almost automatic that these guys go for a yellow. I thought this was being kind to the referee, a soft yellow card. For me, a penalty kick award was the correct decision, and that is all.
So it's not compulsory then to issue a yellow card for a penalty kick to the offence?
No, the basis is one of there's no scenario here of a denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Let's put that out.
Yeah.
He's in that process, but it's not. There's covering defenders, so that criteria is not fulfilled. He's not prevented a goal from being scored by that challenge. So you now look at the challenge, and the challenge has to be reckless before a yellow card is issued in law. A player can make a careless challenge for which a free kick and a penalty kick is awarded. This was a careless challenge by the defender.
Mm.
So for me, giving that player a second yellow was poor. I mean, look, I've always when I coach referees, what I say to them is that second yellow card ought to be closer to orange. Now, there's nothing in law about that. This is about selling the decision, being credible with it. Would that referee, if that challenge had been anywhere else on the field of play, would he have issued a yellow card? Answer, no. Because this player wasn't, I'm thinking, I wonder if he's viewed that as persistently infringing the laws of the game. Well, I think 2 or 3 fouls is not persistent, and there was a gap of time involved in it.
Yeah. So, Keith, why do you think then VAR would have the replays of the TV as well, would they not, while the game was going on?
Yeah.
Why do you think the VAR didn't intervene and say that is a penalty?
Let me say it's a penalty. Well, it could do, but
why do you think he didn't give it?
On the yellow card, let me just clarify that he can't come in on the yellow card.
No, sure,
he's not allowed to.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the first one.
I mean, on the first one, I think it's his mate. I think he's just gone. Well, the referee's there. Yeah, it's not clear and obvious because it's so subjective, isn't it? Clear and obvious.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, the assistant on that side couldn't see it because the players more or less returned to them.
No, he no chance
either because he was behind the play, and surely that's what VAR is there for, to help them make a decision.
Correct.
But to me it was a stonewall penalty.
Yeah, but see,
and I'm not saying because it was for Ireland.
No. I mean, well, I'm saying exactly the same. But there's a bigger picture here, isn't there? How many times have we talked about grappling inside the penalty area?
Well, that was another issue that somebody brought up and said, well, something about if the progress of the player being impeded or being fouled if his progress is not being impeded. There's somebody said that to me today. I can't. If you're watching there, just come in and let me know about that. If the player's progress is not impeded, then it's not a foul, even though he's pulling at his shirt. Ring a bell to you?
Well, I mean, I hear that interpretation, and I understand it. And if you're guy who's made that comment to you, could you tell me where in law that is highlighted? Because in law 12, holding is an offence, and surely if you've got your hands on your opponent's shirt, pulling at it, that has to be an offence.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think referees make their life so much difficult for themselves because they don't apply the law correctly. Is this a short? This is like a trend in the game where we'll put our spin on things. Why don't we just get back to basics?
100%.
Why don't we say that the ball has to be in the quadrant at corner kicks? Why don't we say that there's a 6-second law and we're going to bring it into operation?
And Keith, the penalty kick is now not in the center of that 9 inch.
Oh, that's right.
With the penalty, it's
the same.
further. So it's about It's not 12 yards, it's about 11 yards and
Yeah.
10 inches, you know, so it's
Yeah.
not 12
I mean, why? I mean, there's people who have been good referees and good football players and no doubt managers that sit on this technical committee of the IFAB. Thank you very much, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to satisfy the players' demands, right? Rather than actually saying, this is the law and we're going to stick to it. Now, there's flexibility in law interpretation, but for me, restarts are important. So now what we're going to say is, they haven't spoken about the kickoff, have they? Because next, what they're going to say is, well, if the ball at a penalty area can be positioned here, same for the kick. You know, I mean, I watched a young referee last week using the spray on a free kick midfield where there was no defending players anywhere near, yet he stopped the play, he's come up, he's painted the ground, right? The ball's already there. He strides out 9.15 meters, 10 yards, and draws a line, and there's nobody there. And I'm thinking, what's that about? You know, a waste of paint.
Keith, here's a comment from Brandon Will about what we were talking about. He said it's in the glossary. He's in the glossary. Definition in glossary. Holding offense. A holding offense occurs only when a player's contact with an opponent's body or equipment impedes the opponent's movement.
Yep. I'm happy with that. Thanks, Brandon. I'm really pleased with that, because I was trying to find that. But on this occasion that we're talking about, there was holding, and the player who was being held could not move because he was being held.
Being pulled. He was being his shirt was being dragged off.
He was being pulled in the opposite direction to that he wants to move to. So for me, even with that glossary, and I really thank you for that, it's an offence. It should have been a penalty kick.
Just very quickly then, Keith, this instead of VAR, we're going to get FVS.
Yes. What I think this started off as is a cheap version of VAR. but I have a suspicion here. I think anybody that's really involved with football, players, managers, spectators, referees, we know that the impact of VAR on our game is in the negative, not in the positive. In my opinion, the opinion of lots of people that I speak to. 6 years in, and we're still making a mess of it at the Premier League level. And we get Howard Webb coming out and saying, so far this season, we've only made 2 errors. And even his mate, Dermot Gallagher, who's paid for by the PGMOL, is quoting a bigger number than 2. So, and he's one that sides with the referees. So what this is basically a cut down version. It doesn't need necessarily have massive broadcast cameras. It doesn't have VAR, AVAR. It doesn't have all those people that are in the background.
Yeah.
It simplifies it. And instead of putting the onus on a VAR or even on the referee makes the call, and the manager has one opportunity in the game to make an appeal on what the manager considers to be an incorrect decision. And then that is reviewed.
So very similar to cricket then and tennis.
Exactly. If the manager's appeal is wrong, that's the end of him. He can't appeal for the rest of the game. If it's found proven that there has been an error, it's obviously rectified, and the manager then keeps his powder dry, and he can make a further appeal during the course of the match.
Thanks very much again, Keith. time has run out. Brendan's just come in very quickly with a follow-up, and he says, in American college soccer, NCAA, all schools can now use video review initiated by the ref using whatever technology is available. iPad must be clear and obvious, usually a bad camera angle, no coachman, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Right.
Brandon, Americans do things totally differently than we do. And they don't call it football, they call it soccer. And you know, they have to have a winner, and if is it 25 or a 35-yard shootout, there has to be a winner and all that.
Brilliant.
That's why the Americans will never play cricket, because they'll never understand how you can play for 5 days and still draw. So on that, thanks again. Thanks, Brandon, for your contributions. Thanks, Keith, for joining us. I hope your cold gets better soon. We'll do it all again next week. Until then.
Thanks, Brandon. Thank you.
God bless. Bye-bye.